release every year, and I think we've been on that 10 years in total. The one we're really proud about recently is our Industry Leaders Award. We were named out of a top 15 group across the entire country as one of the top corporate and one of the top healthcare integrators in the country. So we're really proud of what our team is doing. On the bottom right corner of this slide, you'll see that we've been an Access Solutions Gold Partner for a long time. We're really proud of being able to provide our customer solutions with the Access Communication products, which are pretty well the top leading camera technologies in the marketplace today. Try and get here to the next slide for us. All kinds of articles that we've been involved in. The one you see here is in regards to us winning the award, the top left corner. That's us in front of Portland Headlight. And then on the top right is our team on the rocks, where we were named the #1 integrator in the country. In the bottom right, this is an interesting article you'll find on our website. We were the system we deployed at Fairpoint Communications. It was a huge video wall that we set up there for their new operations center. It was named the best mission critical project that our Best Mission Critical Project by Commercial Integrator magazine. So it's an interesting article, and it was a very IT-centric video wall that we put in there. And we service all of Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Vermont, and we also support our customers who have head offices in these regions across the world. So if you've got a head office here and you need some assistance anywhere in the world, we have the ability to deploy and support those systems as they go out. So I'm going to pass the reins on here to Steve Jussaume, who's going to educate us on some great technologies. All right, Steve.
Thanks, Rob. So as Rob mentioned, my name is Stephen Jussaume, and I'm the Regional Sales Manager for Access Communications, covering Maine, New Hampshire, and Western Mass. So I have the privilege of working with Rob and his team over at Advanced Technology, and they're one of our top partners who installs our video surveillance cameras to provide solutions for their end customers. And today, as Rob mentioned, we're going to focus on a couple of technologies that we offer at Access Communications that really help produce a usable image while minimizing the amount of bandwidth that requires and the amount of storage it requires. But before we do that, we're going to talk just briefly about who Access Communications is. So Access Communications was actually founded in 1984 as a print server company. Our founders, one of our founders, Martin Gren, who is based out of Lund, Sweden, actually wanted to start a company, and he was in the technology industry, and he started the print server company, Communications. And then in 1996, he actually invented the world's first IP network camera that did one frame every 17 seconds. So since 1996, we've actually led the market in network security cameras, and we've come out with some of the latest products and technology to produce the most usable images. Last year, we did about $794 million in sales. The number that's not up here is about 16%. 16% of that comes out to about $127 million. That's how much we reinvested into research and development. That's how we're continuing to push the market forward and coming out with new technologies such as wide dynamic range forensic capture and Zipstream that we're going to talk about today. Just going to move this forward. So can you move it to the next slide, please? So this is our brief history of our timeline and where we've come from. So I mentioned in 1996 we actually invented the world's first IP network camera. And here's where we are today. We've led the industry in network security cameras, but in 2013 we actually started to move into access control products, and we are now moving into video door stations and audio products as well. But the one thing I do want to highlight on this slide is in 1999 we actually came out with our own image processing chip. So this is called the ARPEC chip, Access Real-Time Picture Encoder. This is what gives our cameras the ability to produce the most usable image and actually do multiple technologies such as wide dynamic range forensic capture and Zipstream all on one camera. This is not an OEM's product, so no other camera manufacturers have this chipset. It's the world's only chipset that's dedicated and designed for IP network video. So can you go to the next one? So today we're going to talk about two technologies, but I do want to just highlight that we do have the market's broadest portfolio. So whatever needs you have, just give the advanced technology team a call, give Rob a call, and we can all come together to help provide you with the right solution to fit your needs. Because we do have your fixed box style cameras, the thermal cameras, the PTZs, the domes. And even if you still have analog cameras, they might still be producing a high quality image, but you want to transition over to an IP technology. Well, that's where encoders come into play. An encoder can take your analog camera, turn it into an IP signal. That way you can slowly migrate over to a fully IP integrated system. And today what we're really going to talk about is obtaining a usable image while maximizing bandwidth and storage through access technology. So the first technology we're going to talk about is wide dynamic range. So I'm sure you've all heard this terminology before. All camera manufacturers have this type of technology, but at Axis we simply do it better. So what is wide dynamic range? It's simply the camera's ability to balance light. So basic wide dynamic range is when the camera's internal settings are adjusting to balance the shadow areas of a scene and the brighter areas of the scene. Its basic wide dynamic range is great for an office type environment that doesn't really have any dynamic light, but may just have some areas where lights are turned on or lights are turned off. It helps produce a more usable image. But I'm sure you've all seen or have cameras that have images such as this one where the scene is either really dark and bright in one section or really bright and not so much usable in the others, as well as this image right here. So wide dynamic range is really needed for those areas that have a dynamically lit scene where there's a lot of intense backlight. Think of the main entrance of your facility, or think of the loading dock where the garage doors are going up and down and the trucks are coming and going. If it's a brightly lit day and there's a lot of sunlight coming in, that can overexpose the scene and produce a non-usable image. So if you have a dynamically lit scene, you're going to want to have an image such as this one. This is wide dynamic range forensic capture. This is the type of technology that comes on some Axis cameras that can produce a very usable image to help you identify who's coming and going from a scene or what's within a scene, even if it's dynamically lit. So if we look at an analog camera, this is a typical image with an analog camera. You can see what's going on, but you can't really identify who's coming into the scene or what's going on outside of the scene, which may be important as well. So if you switch over to an IP camera that has wide dynamic range forensic capture technology, you're going to be able to have the most usable image possible. So what you can see here is it's a bright sunny day, but you can clearly see through the glass in this garage area, or the main vestibule where I'm walking in through the breezeway. You can clearly identify who that is. Or if you have the front lobby of your facility that's brightly lit, or the main entrance of a school. It's great to have these types of technologies in cameras, so those mission critical areas where people are coming and going, or as I mentioned, where there's a dynamically lit scene. You can clearly identify what's going on. You have the garage scenario where the garage door goes up, and most of the time on a basic camera, this is going to be an overexposed image. Well, now with wide dynamic range forensic capture and an Axis camera, you're going to be able to see what's going on. So there's no point in having a camera looking at a scene if you can't use the image. Then you have your more dynamic scene. How about an airplane hangar where the garage door opens? This could be very useful for an airport type scenario, as you do have these large bay doors. And you can clearly identify what's going on outside. So the next technology we're going to highlight is our Zipstream technology. So it's great to have a usable image, but it's also great to have an image that's not going to kill your bandwidth and your storage. So Zipstream is a new technology that Axis came out with that pairs with the H.264 stream and greatly reduces the amount of bandwidth and storage that is required from your network. So what it is going to do is it is going to look at what's moving within a scene. The algorithm is looking at what's moving, it's retaining that detail, and it's compressing everything else around it. you're not going to see a reduction in image quality, but you are going to see a reduction in your bandwidth and your storage. So here are some video examples of Zipstream in action. So on the right-hand side, you see the same stream with Zipstream enabled. And you can see how much lower the bandwidth is. Lower bandwidth equals lower storage. I have a customer in central Massachusetts that needs 3.5 years of retention. The overall server cost was reduced by about $200,000 because they needed that much less storage utilizing Zipstream technology. So when you add up the total savings that Zipstream can give you over 1, 10, 20, 30, or 100 cameras, you could start to see a dramatic reduction in the overall cost of your entire system. And just some additional information from Access Communications, we have some of the best tech support in the industry. So if you ever have a technical issue with an Access camera, feel free to call Advanced Technology, but you can also call Access Communications. We have about 20 tech support engineers sitting in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, ready to take your calls and help you out. I can also provide you with mean time before failure documents on every single one of our products. So our products have 1- and 3-year standard warranties, but you can extend them out to 5. But our products have been tested, and we have tested them that they'll last between 7 and 10 years. We also have extensive classroom and online trainings that you can take. And please visit our YouTube channel. We have an excellent YouTube channel with a ton of example videos on our products and technology. And then we also have our Access Experience Center. So our North American headquarters is located in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. And if you ever want to visit our Experience Center, where you can see some of our latest and greatest products, you can see our products pulled into your video management software of choice before you purchase it. We can have that all set up for you, and we could have Advanced Technology come in with you and do a presentation on the solution they want to provide for you. And then we can also give you a tour of our facility. So feel free to reach out to Rob and the Advanced Technology team, and we'd be more than happy to set this up for you. And if there's any questions, Rob is going to take over. I know we kind of went over wide dynamic range and Zipstream a little bit quick. So if there's any questions out there, please feel free to ask.
Hey, thanks, Steve. If anybody who's on the webinar would like to ask a question, you can put that right inside of the chat area. And it looks like a couple people have already posted, so they must know how this all works. I'm going to read one of the first questions here. So if you have any other questions, please put it in the chat area. I'll scroll up. So the first question that we have here, Steve, is, does Zipstream work with all camera recording software?
So yes, Zipstream does work with all video management softwares out there. And the reason I say that is because Zipstream is a camera-based application. So video management softwares, as long as they have the ability to pull the H.264 stream, you're going to be able to take advantage of the benefits of Zipstream. Now, there is an additional feature of Zipstream, which I kind of just call turning on the turbo boost. And that's where you're going to be able to see sometimes a savings of about 80%. And that's going to require the video management software to fully support Zipstream. So the top video management software companies such as Exact, Milestone, Genetec, ONSSI, they all support the full version of Zipstream. But if you want to see savings of 10 up to 50% in your bandwidth and storage, you can see that right away by just installing an Access camera on your current video management software, no matter what it is.
All right, great. I've got another question here. I think that they mean the wide dynamic range, but how about in dark applications? So I guess the point is, you showed if it's really bright, wide dynamic range does a great job. What's going to happen if it gets a little darker inside of that environment?
Sure. So it depends on how dark the scene is. But wide dynamic range is actually going to help balance the scene in both bright applications and in dark applications. So if we just talk about a very dark scene where the camera turns over into day-night mode, that might be an application where you're going to want to have built-in IR illuminators, which Access does offer. We have cameras with built-in IR illuminators that can help illuminate the scene. And wide dynamic range is actually going to help balance that scene out even more. So with cameras that have built-in eye illuminators, you're obviously going to be able to see a black and white image in a pitch black scenario. But there still may be some shadowy areas. Well, wide dynamic range will actually help brighten up that scene and balance it out to produce a more usable image. Same as if the camera turns just over into day-night mode. Wide dynamic range forensic capture is still going to balance out those shadowy areas of the scene to produce a more usable image. So it does work in both bright and darker scenarios.
Great, thank you. I'm going to ask you a question because I'm a little bit interested. So how about different resolutions? So if we're comparing a 1 megapixel camera to a 5 megapixel camera, and they have Zipstream technology, are we going to see an equal reduction in bandwidth usage through those cameras? So if we're saying 50%, or would a higher resolution camera potentially provide, with Zipstream technology, provide a higher percentage of reduction?
So you can still see a very similar percentage in reduction, but the thing to take into consideration with Zipstream is that you're going to see the most savings on static scenes, because Zipstream is looking at what's moving within the scene. If there's a lot of motion within the scene, actually let me repeat myself. So if you have an H.264 stream and there's a lot of motion, you're going to have a certain set number of bandwidth. If you apply Zipstream to that, you're going to see a bandwidth reduction. But if there's no motion within the scene, that savings is going to increase dramatically. Because when Zipstream is applied, it's looking at what's moving within the scene. So if you have, it doesn't matter if you have a 1, 2, or 5 megapixel camera, you could still see dramatic savings. Because if we just take a static scene, which is very common, a security camera is looking at a parking lot, and 50% of that time, that parking lot may have no motion. You can see some dramatic savings there, and it does not matter if it's a 1, 2, or 3, or 5 megapixel camera.
Great, thank you. All right, so there's another question that just came in. It says, is there a firmware upgrade to existing Axis cameras that allows Zipstream to be enabled?
So on some existing Axis cameras that have our ARPEC 5, so that's our image processing chip, the version 5 of that chip, there are firmware upgrades that will enable Zipstream. So for instance, our Q3505 is a very popular Dome series camera. If you upgrade to the latest firmware, that will allow you to enable Zipstream. Our Zipstream is actually enabled on some of our PPZ cameras as well, so our pan-tilt zoom cameras. So the Q61 we released about a year ago, and that camera did not have Zipstream at first, but a firmware upgrade has allowed for Zipstream to be implemented on that camera. If you go to our Zipstream, if you go to the axis.com and go to our Zipstream website, it'll actually tell you what cameras do support Zipstream. So if you have an older Axis camera and you want to see if it does have a firmware upgrade that supports Zipstream, you can check it out on that site. Or feel free to email Rob, and he and I can put together a list of all the cameras for you and get it out to you.
Excellent. So that looks like all the questions at this point in time. Can we move one more slide forward, Duncan, please? So I want to thank everyone for taking their time to come out and join us on our webinar Wednesdays. As I mentioned before, we have our next webinar occurring on June the 1st in regards to how asset tracking can add tremendous ROI to your organization. You can reach us on these social media channels, and thank you very much and have a wonderful day. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Rob, and have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Do you have anything you want to? Yeah, there you go.